Alright, folks. Once I get some feedback that my stream is going good, I'll get started. I don't want to leave this hanging too long. I'm just doing a quick talk today. Don't know how long it'll be. Just depends how much I jabber, I guess. Going to discuss default EWG settings, my experience with them and what we've used. I'm also going to talk about paddle shifting and how to use Data's app to optimize your paddle shifting. So yeah, I'll get started here in like I don't know 1 minute or so. About 11:05, 11:06, I'll get started. If someone can confirm that my audio quality is good, that would be awesome. Sweet. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just jump into this. So there's. Can it go louder? I have the microphone pretty close to my mouth, so no, I can't really go louder than this. Um, all right. So the point of this talk today is I wanted to release some EWG settings to start with. Now these are not the end all be all, but these are some settings that you can start with that, based on my experience, work out pretty well. I know there's a lot of confusion about what settings to use, and I'm going to make a post after this with the actual settings in them as I am talking about. But there's been a lot of conversation about what settings are good for EWG, and there's a lot of people trying to run FF Wastegate 60. And in my experience, FF Wastegate 60 causes problems. You need to actually dial it in and tweak it for specific areas, because if you increase the EWG settings too much, you actually lose ignition timing. And if you lose ignition timing, you're losing power as well. So, you can add a whole bunch of boost, but then you lose ignition timing and now you lost power. So I'm going to talk about my experience, and what I've been doing with them. So on the screen share here, again, I'm going to post this, and when I'm done, this is a starter map. This is one of the maps I would start with when I'm building somebody a curve. Ooh, I see something off here, because I would actually start with this at 0. Sorry, I grabbed one of my clients' early maps and basically started tweaking it. And you're going to notice some things. One, I have a boost curve that likes to taper up. Um, Typically, when I'm dialing somebody in, by the time I'm done, this area on the top end is tapered up significantly more. You're also going to notice that the EWG below 3500, I'm not doing much with it. And the reason I'm not doing much with it is I don't want to lose timing. And I found it was really easy to increase that number by 5 or even 10, and all of a sudden I've lost 1.5 degrees of ignition timing, somewhere around there. So what I do is I actually taper this up. And again, these are starter settings. I would tune somebody's car further with the logs, but this is something that works for most people as long as your octane's holding. So if you're running map 2 and you have EWG wires, these settings should work for you. And the idea is I'm increasing wastegate as we go up, with 60 being at 6,000, and then tapering back down. The reason I'm doing that is by increasing the EWG. In theory, you're increasing the torque, because the ECU is actually going to see that boost. Therefore, the torque value is going to be higher, which will also cause the car to shift a little firmer based on the feedback from many of my clients. So that's been my experience. The fuel bias stuff, 120 is a good starting point for most people. Again, this is really important that you have the octane to support this. So if you're on 91 octane, don't expect this to work for you on map 2, because it's going to pull shit tons of timing and you're going to see ignition corrections all over the place. But if you're on some good 93 or E30 or methanol, this should work. As you can see, I've called this a MEF starter map. It's got all the different settings, and I'm going to be posting this entire map up for use, for methanol people. So yeah, let's talk about a little bit about the shifting patterns. So I know a lot of people have been hitting me up recently asking lots of questions about paddle shifting, why we're paddle shifting, and how we made Kato the Stinger go so fast. So the secrets to Kato the Stinger are not really secrets. It's just doing the same thing I do for every single client, which is increase the numbers, check the logs, check if we're going faster either with a drag gear at the drag strip, rinse and repeat. So I'm going to show here some quick examples, and I'm going to show you why we paddle shift. And paddle shifting is good for about 2/10 in the quarter mile in our experience. So right here, this is, and I'm pretty sure this is the 11.241 pass for Kato the Stinger. And you're going to notice that his shifts are happening at like 5,800 RPM. We are shifting this bad boy early. And the reason is we're shifting when we still have 20.3 psi of boost. I'm going to show you another person's car. This is another car running all the way out the gears. You'll notice he's going to 64. By the time he gets above 5,900, look at that. He's at 18 psi, 16 psa by 6,100, 15.5 by 6,300. So look, power's just nosediving past 6,000. So in my professional opinion, there's no point to shift that late unless you're in fifth gear trying to finish out the quarter mile. And you can see this. It's really bad in first too. Like boom, down there. Then you drop back to Kato's. He's shifting at 56. He's still making 21 psi. Kato's car on this pass was running a peak of 23.8 psi. That is a lot more boost than we would run on most people's cars. But we were doing some testing. We had really good race gas. We knew that things were holding solid. We got a little bit of ignition correction going on. We always see ignition correction on number 3 on Kato's. We've gotten to the point where just ignore that. Just completely ignore it and watch what the times are doing and let the times tell us. Now, if we start seeing a bunch of corrections all over the place, then we back things off. But this was the record pass, at least per my notes. Show another thing here. Fuel pressure, you can see, is holding solid all the way through. In general, we're trying to get this car to stay above 20 psi at all times. We're averaging around 23 in the peak area. You can see it does nosedive, but it's not nosediving nearly as bad as, here, let me get rid of this line. There, that's what the nosedive looks like on another person's car I'm working with. And this was him letting it auto shift. So if he was shifting at 6, see that? Look, if he just stopped at 6, he'd still been at 17 psi versus 14.5 when he went all the way to red line. So people are going to also wonder, how do we make it shift at those art patterns? I'm going to post that up as part of my thing here. When I'm done here, I'm going to post up the RPMs we tell it to pull the paddles at. Let me see what Shane's asking here. I have a little late, but seeing you were talking about map 2 and octane, what about people who have the fuel sensor and Terry makes some auto adjust? Okay, so the auto adjustment stuff with the fuel sensor has to be wired in and actually tuned just like methanol. So yes, it can quote unquote auto tune, but that just means that if the E rating's lower than what it expects, it just turns the boost down. It's not really auto tuning for ignition advance, so it doesn't actually look at ignition. So you could be like, oh cool, let me tell it to run 8 additional psi when I have E30, and the car's going to try to do that, and when you have E25, it's going to run 6 additional psi, and it could still be knocking its ass off. So one thing I want to really get clear here is Terry tells you if your car's running and there's no major issues. Terry does not do actual... Yes, I'm aware what the sensor is. I just said, but if you don't have the octane, if you don't have enough octane to manage the extra boost, the auto tuning won't do shit for you besides make you slow. So auto tuning is cool because it can deal with E40 versus E30, but it doesn't actually solve the problem here. Because if your tune is still wrong, it's still wrong. It just runs less boost and is less wrong. You got to treat it just like methanol. You dial it in, you set the settings, you find the sweet spot, and you leave it there. And you do that by using logs, tweaking, and draggy or dyno or track time. If you're just adding boost and going off that, you're really just asking for problems. So, as I mentioned earlier, the paddle shifting pattern we use I'm going to release it. Let me go ahead. I'm going to actually put it in here. Paddle shifting. And 5,200, 5,400, 5,500. That's the pattern that I'm telling most people to start with. And what you got to do is, again, you got to review your logs. You come into your logs and you find out how bad you're nosediving, and you use that to decide where you should be shifting. And you look at your shift points. Like on Kato's, we want it to shift as close to 6,000 as we can. 5,900, 5,800 highs seems to work pretty well for Kato. Um, I mean, there's a huge difference here, just gigantic. As soon as you get past 6,000, look at that nosedive. You just lost all your power. So running it out doesn't help you unless you're in fifth gear. In fifth gear, it makes sense to run it out because you're trying to run through the traps without shifting one more time. So I don't have a ton more for today's. I just wanted to get these new EWG settings shared with everyone, which is a taper. Um, and the idea is to taper up on the top end to get to help fight that curve. Like we're doing everything we can to fight the nosedive that's in the stock tuning and a byproduct of tiny turbos. So it's a combination. Like even if we fixed all the things, we still couldn't run like 24 psi up top on these little tiny turbos. They would run out of air or they just become hair dryers. If anybody has any questions, let's throw it in the chat. I'll hang around for a few more minutes. Today was just a quick one. I just wanted to get the data out. I'm really hoping to spend some time on the code later today. Is there a substantial delay between a trigger? Yes, yes. That is the time delay is why we shift like this. I'll post it in here. There's absolutely a time delay when you pulled at 4,500. So that's what we tell Scott to pull his paddle at. So we're telling him to pull it at 4,800, 5,000, 52, 54, and 55. And that's what gets us closer and closer to what we want to see. Let me do this. Let me do open the throttle. That gets first gear shifted at 56. Second gear shifted at 6. Third gear shifted at 58.25. Fourth gear shifted at 58.50. Fifth gear shifted at 59.28. And let's see here. We can see that was the top end, 122. So that was him trapping through the quarter mile. Yeah, there is a significant delay from the time when you pull the paddles. And that's why the paddle times that I tell people are so low. And that's to deal with the absolute delay that exists. Go all the way past the kick down tab, or do you kick down tab? So if you're running a 0 to 100 eighth mile quarter mile, you mash that bitch to the floor, push through the tab. If you're on the dyno, you don't want to push that tab. You want to push all the way to that button and stop on the dyno. Otherwise the car will kick down. So if you're trying to do a run where you don't kick down, don't push the button. If you don't care if you're kicking down, like you're trying to do a drag race or something, or I'm sorry, a roll race, you want it to kick down in that case, or you want to already be in the gear and ready to go. So just understand that the button doesn't really matter when you're doing a drag race, but when you're doing a roll race, it's a different story. Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to go over today? So I got the methanol. Oh, air fuel stuff. I did want to talk about air fuel, and I also wanted to give a brief shout out to Terry for the version 19 settings. So version 19 of the firmware allows for using map 6 boost curves on map 7, which is super awesome when you turn on MEF safety 1. So I'm going to post this whole map up. My thoughts on launching in second gear is if you don't give a shit about your torque converter and transmission, fucking have fun with it. It won't work on a GT2. It only works on the models that don't have shift by wire in our testing. So if I try to launch my old GT2 in second, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't let me do it, even with brake snip. I know Jarrett Legion. He launches in second gear, and he has some really good eighth mile times. I mean, I helped him dial his car in. His eighth mile times were very impressive. And a lot of that we think could have been due to second gear launches because he has one less shift. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell because he never consistently was able to launch the car in first gear like he could in second. So he never could compare apples to apples. I mean, I'm very sketchy about certain things like that. Yeah, V19 is the bomb. And like I said, I'm going to post this MEF starter map. Please understand that this MEF starter map assumes that you have enough octane to use it. And um, if you don't, check your logs and just watch it or ask me. The 2019 will. That's interesting because the 2018 would not at all. Um, Let me see. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. I do plan to try and get some lap 3 stuff added to the bot soon. I'm also working on tagging in the bot, so it'll mark spots with like low pressure, fuel pressure, and stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna get it all done today because I'm a little under the weather, but I did want to get this talk out here and post this, and I'm gonna actually post this right now. So I'm being oh, that was for E30 and meth per my notes. I'm gonna switch this 91 plus E30 and meth, or must be 80. All right. So this is so for anyone interested and wants to know more, this is how I actually keep track of everybody's different tunes. So like you can see here I've got all these different files that are just each person's tunes. Man, that's a whole bunch of entry stuff of that's awesome. I mean, I didn't know you could do it. That's cool that you can. I couldn't in my GT2. I tried and it wouldn't work. Yeah, do not blindly use these settings. If anyone blindly uses these settings, I'm going to do this just to be safe. I can't stress that enough. Anyone blindly using settings or running maps is just making their life difficult. These settings are designed to be a starting point after you've validated that your meth works. Um, it may be too much. You might have to turn the boost down depending on your octane. Yeah, V21 and 22 I'm not very comfortable with yet. 19 T4 has been smooth as hell for every car I'm using it on. Um, yeah, this will be a good enough start point. Okay. Please make sure you read all the notes when using this map. If you're going to try this, and this is where I would typically start for most people that I'm doing custom map 6 tuning for. Um, so I am sharing how I do my secret sauce that makes people fast. The real trick here isn't this map. It's really reading the logs and making sure that people's shit is right. Because if it's not right, you could come in here and max this number out up here. You could put 10 for every single value, and all you're going to do is make your car knock really bad and go slower. I've got numerous people. Timbal. What's that? No. Sorry, I get distracted easy, ADD. These settings, I really can't stress this enough. I have, like, dragged my feet on releasing my own custom starting point because I was afraid people wouldn't listen, but at this point, I want people to understand that this isn't a bunch of magic and that different maps are just higher boost levels and different AFR targets. So I'm going to go ahead and post this real quick. If anybody wants to put any questions in the question thing, I'll answer them right after I finish this post. And then I'm going to end this video log or whatever you call this. My video first. Base map 6 / map 7 settings for 93 plus 75 25 meth or E30 or 91 plus E30 plus 75 25 meth. All right. This is a starting point for. I'm going to still turn it down a little bit. I'm just afraid that people are going to come in here and run this without actually knowing what the hell they're doing. And then somebody's going to blow their shit up. One other thing I like to do, if it's a rear-wheel drive car, a lot of times I will do. Actually, I'll post a rear-wheel drive fuel map, a base map too. All right. This will be the all-wheel drive one. Then I'll come down here and I'll put the rear-wheel drive one. And the rear-wheel drive one is basically the same top end, but what I do is I neuter the bottom end to basically make it so the car will hook better. This allows you to still keep some of your top end of first gear, which most people are hooking by, while still making it so you, when you actually roll off the line, you're doing pretty good. This is the rear-wheel drive map. Okay, please watch my video first. Do not run these settings without meth data logging. All right, I think I got everything in here. So I'm going to read this one more time, and then I'm going to answer questions that people have posted. I hope you guys enjoy this. This allows you guys to start using a better curve on basically map 7, because map 7 normally has a weird curve based on boost additive. It's not like a flat 75. Like if you put 60 in there, it's not plus 6 everywhere. It would be a taper. Where this, the truth of our cars is you actually want to reverse taper with meth. You want the taper up to try and, again, everything we're doing is to try and fight the natural curve of the OEM tune. We're doing the same thing in the EWG, and we're doing it in the boost targeting, fuel targeting, and just giving you a basic starting point. And then down here, I've got the paddle shifting listed that you'd want to use for quarter mile. All right. I'm very excited to post this. Let's see. Do I have any pictures to go with it? That would be fun.